wood effect color, you need to work with these three colors: yellow, red, and brown. How do you achieve that? You have to mix the three together. So mix the three together. This will give you a kind of brownish color. It will still be brown, but it will be a lighter shade of brown. Now, if you work with only brown, you see how brown looks. If you work with only brown, you will not get the kind of color we have on that box. It will just still remain like a normal brown. It could just be a light shade of brown. But now when you mix these three colors, you see the shade now. Only brown cannot give you this shade. So for you to achieve this kind of shade, you need to mix red, yellow, and then brown. Now, if you want it lighter, you add more yellow. So we'll add the yellow to it, all of it, to give us a light shade. It's sticking, so you need to put sharpening on your work surface to prevent it from sticking. Good.
So what you're trying to achieve there is wood color?
Yes. It's a wood color. Now we are trying to achieve a shade of brown that is not as dark as this. You see this one now? This is very dark. So we can't achieve this shade using just brown. Are you getting it now? So we'll add all of the red to it now. You see the color now? You can use airbrush. Sometimes if you have an airbrush, you can use airbrush to achieve this. First spray white, yellow, then you spray red, then apply brown. But if you don't have airbrush, you have to do it this way. Now at this point, you don't want to incorporate all of it anymore. You can see that you have brown, red, yellow, a kind of here and there like marble. So we are going to stop at this point. Okay, this is what we are going to be working with. All right, so just blend it perfectly. Want it to have some parts to be much more red and a kind of like marble effect. Can we see it? Like what she has now is perfect for what we want to do. So the next thing we are going to do is to roll it out. You take a portion, just cut out of it. Take a portion. All right. Now you're going to roll this. You can see the effect now on it. This looks close to that, isn't it? Now the one on this, the cake we are working with, trying to replicate, was done with airbrush. So in the absence of airbrush, this is how you achieve it. But always remember that there is no shade of brown that can give you this color. Do you understand? You can't achieve this color with just brown. You have to blend red, yellow, and brown to get this. And if you observe, the brown that went into this is not as much as the yellow and red. So if you want it darker than this, we'll add more brown. If you want it light, you add yellow. Is that okay? All right, so neat. Feel free to ask questions. Rita, you have to be checking your work surface to make sure it's not sticky. Okay, how thick is that? You need it to be, you don't need it very thick. This part is thick. Can you see that? So you cut it out. Cut it out using your pizza cutter. Cut out the side, cut this part. Okay, cut it out. Cut the other part. Now, if you want to be accurate, you may just need to take the measurement of the width and height of the cake or the dummy you're working with. So with this now, you place it on your texture mat. This is a wood effect texture mat. So place it on it. Now roll on it. Can I get a skewer stick? No, I need a skewer stick. That's okay. Now we have just embossed our fondant using the texture mat. Can you see the effect now? Now, if you want more highlights, you can further emboss this using your modeling tool or a skewer stick to further highlight the details on the pattern on it. So because of the activities on that particular design, we don't want this one to be too loud. You understand? Because it's going to be a busy cake all through. If this is too loud, it will steal the attention from. Remember, each time you're working on a cake, you need to know where you want the attention to be. Where is your highlights? Where do you want the attention to be? Is it on the trunk board or on the dashiki, the base cake? Do you understand now? So and you know why the trunk must stay simple as we can keep it is because it's going to have several things in it, accessories and all of that. So if this is too loud, this will just look like too harsh. So you need to be able to control your design so that you don't make it too lousy. All right. So now this is the dummy. Let's have your dummy, please. This is a 6 by 7 inch tall dummy. 6 by 7 inch dummy. So you're going to just trim this. Come close to this place. You see how we are trimming it now? Sometimes it's best to take measurements so that you don't have surplus. If this were real cake and you have too much of it in excess, it will destroy that fondant. You see how nice it looks? You see the shade? So I'm going to trim out these parts. I'll come up and trim out these parts. Make sure it's touching the base. Make sure it's sitting on the base. When you cover your fondant and your cakes or your dummy, I don't take note of this proper lapping. When it gets dry, when the fondant dries out, it will jump. Do you understand? It will shorten. So if you want to avoid that, make sure it's even better to have extra. So when it's shrinking, drying out, you can have it in position. This is what we are going to achieve. You can see how perfect, how nice it looks. So we are going to do this on all the sides and also do on the top. Now, the one that will be on the top does not necessarily have to have the same pattern. It can be plain. All right? So can we all proceed and get to this point? Cut. Now, to create the cover for the box, if you're working with a real cake, you need to bake a round cake. Okay? If your box is 6 inch, you use a 6-inch pan to bake your round cakes. Then you cut them into half and stack this way. That means if you cut your round cake into half, this is a dummy. This was 6-inch dummy, right? So we shared it into 2 to have this shape and size. So if it's a real cake, it's going to be like this normal round cake. It's going to be a normal round cake. Then you will cut it into, let's assume, where's the other half of, let me have the half that you have. Your half, that half. If this were to be a real cake, this was like this, okay? This was like this. So what we did was we shared it into half. Now, if this were to be a real cake, I'll just get my if this is 6-inch tall, this has to complement the size of the box. This has to be exact size with the box, like this. If you watch, it's the same, right? Can you see that? It's sitting perfectly well on it. That means from here to here is the same size. That's how you do when you're working with a real cake. Now, for a real cake, this is what I will do. I'll get a board that is also this size. Check this size. Let's see the width. That's a tape. Use a tape to check the width. Let's see. Because the width. That's 6, right? 6. So I'll get a board that is 6 by what? Check the height. I know. 6 by 7. So I'll get a board that is 7-inch long with 6-inch width. Now, when I make my 6-inch pancakes, I'll have to make like 5 pans. I'll share them into half and stack them in this form on the board. Are you getting it now? I'll use buttercream to sandwich and then stack them to get this length now. Are you getting it? Now that board, you know, for this thing to be open, there should be a stopper. There will have to be a stopper here to prevent it from collapsing. So that board now is going to provide that support when you're working with a real cake. Is it understood? Yes. Mm-hmm. Now, because this is a dummy, we will not need all of that. Okay? And to cover, you still use the paneling method the way we did. Just the same way we covered this one. You roll, texture it, you have to cover this part. So that means if you're working on a real cake, you have to cover the back of your board first and allow it to dry for some days, maybe 1-2 days. If it doesn't get dry, by the time you place it down and start working from the top, it will start sticking on your work surface or trying to pull off. That's why you need to prepare that part that will rest on the cake ahead of time so that it can dry out properly, so that the fondant won't fall off. Is that understood? Mm-hmm. So we are going to just do the paneling method, the same thing we did with this. We first cover the back. That's this part that is going to be facing down. Who has covered their own? Let me see. Has anyone covered? Okay, let me have that one. Just like this now. This is the finished product. See how nice it looks. So she has covered the inner part, okay? So that when we finally close our box and it's open, nobody is seeing what is under. You get it now? Nobody is seeing what is under. It will just sit in perfectly well. So that's the thing we're going to do. Cover here. Okay. First cover this part. Allow it to just set. Then you start covering the other parts. Is that understood? Any question?
How do you stick it on with skewer?
Yes, you will have to stick this so you will see it when we are doing this. If it's a real cake, we use dowel rod to do the great suspension. Then because this is not a real cake, skewer stick can take the pressure. Rita, you are a master in this matter. See Madam Jolie. Jolie is just sitting quietly and enjoying herself. You guys have done well. The covering is very neat.
Is the mat free? Cover the before.
Why you see consist or less than 1. If you know you can't cut straight, please use ribbon cutter for the purpose of uniformity. Now we're going to have like 3 of this. This is not long enough. 3 of it, 2 of it, 1 here, the other one here. So let me see if this will do this. This is okay for this part. Okay, we do the same here. Very well is by cutting it. If you don't want the effect to bulge out, okay, you can just place it and then trim it from these points, bring out the excess so it fits in perfectly. So most time it's best to place it first before you cut, so that you don't have shortage or it's not jumping from where you want it to be. So we have used royal icing to do this. Now here we are going to use royal icing to create like scallop, like W. Just keep going. Ensure that your pressure is not heavy. Okay. Sorry. Please, take it from there. So we are going to use accessories here. what we are going to do something else. So we have covered our box and we have detailed it as well. We used royal icing and mold to create these effects. You can use any mold that is available that you have. Alright, so the next thing we are going to do now is to create the suspension. We are going to use skewer stick because it's a dummy and it's not so heavy. The cover is not so heavy. But if you're using a real cake, remember I said you have to use a dowel. Do you understand? Alright, so we are going to open our box, but before we do that, we will first paint the accessories, okay, with gold. We're going to paint with gold. I'm using edible spirits. I'm using edible spirits. So I'm just going to dilute and then use a paint brush. The consistency should be a bit thick. We are just going to use our luster dust. Remember, bright gold is better for me. And like I said before, when you're using luster dust, do not brush on what you're painting on. Don't brush this way. Don't do this kind of stroke brushing. Just dab. When you dab, it penetrates into the pattern on your fondant. Okay, this way you'll be able to brush. You see this effect now. With dabbing, you can get into it easily than when you start brushing on it. And just so that you know, I really don't like using edible spirits for my paintings. You know why? It dries out really fast, and then when you use it with luster dust, when it dries, sometimes you see the particles of the luster dropping. Okay. So I prefer to use spirits. I mean Chelsea. Oh. You know Chelsea? Yeah. I use Chelsea alcohol. Chelsea is clear spirit, so I prefer to use it than edible spirits. I consider edible spirits quite harsh, just to prevent that. You can see this method is really fast. So we are done. You can see how beautiful the box looks. It's taking shape already. Now the next thing we are going to do is to create the leaf. See it now? Assuming it's closed. You understand? Now because it's going to be open, we can afford to make it short. Remember, these are just accessories. These are just make believe, alright? So we're going to attach this here and then paint before we create the suspension. Preferably, I would rather we open our box, create the opening before we do that. Now come, all of you come please. We want to create the suspension now. This is skewer stick. I'm going to insert it from this place, from this point down. It depends on how wide you want the opening to be. So it's going to rest on it. Is it outside? Okay. Is it outside? Hold on. It's too long then. I'll have to bring it closer, maybe to this point. Because the cover has to rest on this part. Can I have your beads? Your accessories. Where are they? So with the length of this box, I'll do 4. It has to all be on the same line. I'll break this a little. Now, let me have fondant. Okay. Come, all of you come. This is what I do. I take fondant. And if it's a real cake, this is what you, this will hold. If it were a real cake, using dowel stick, it will stop it from pressing because there will be a separator board here, like I said before. So when I do dummies, I just put this, or I do this. Let me show you another thing you can do. You put this at the middle. You see that now? So it's open, right? So let's check our sides and see that it's complementing it. Can you see it now? Can you see it now? All right, now. To put your accessories, supposing it's a cake you want to take far, you're transporting out of your area, or maybe you're not going with it, you are not going with the cake to the event, and you want to just weigh bill or transport it to wherever, you will need to use a skewer stick to stop this, or toothpick. So this is what I like to do. I just take small toothpick, insert it where I want the bead to be, then I wrap it around it. You see it now? If you don't do this, it will fall, right? So with this, you'll find to stay. You have to give the impression that the box is filled up with jewelries, isn't it? You don't want it to look like it's a scanty box. It's an illusion, so it has to give that impression that the bead is filled, the box is filled with beads. Is this yours too? So we have a full box, isn't it? You have to be creative with your arrangements. Remember, you have design on the box, so you don't want to cover it with your bead. Can you see that? So can we all do this quickly?